and the third as we bring you our last program for the year. Really, as a holiday is coming, and we're moving toward Christmas celebrations and then Kwanzaa celebrations, and there's just such a spirit of giving in the community, and I am just really excited about what I see in terms of the outpouring of humanity as we try to help one another. So we have an open mic this evening. We invite you to call in, share your questions or comments, 858 251 6111, 858 251 6111. And we know that after tonight, people are going to be really getting busy. By the time we get to this weekend, San Diego, for all intents and purposes, was shut down. People are starting to take that long weekend. Some are going to take Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to really stretch it out. So, but we're going to be out there. Voice and Viewpoint will be covering these events that are taking place. One of the biggest ones left, I think, Dr. Thompson, is the Shabbat event on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, yeah, that's going to be one of the biggest ones. I think that she has over 10,000. Well, she has way more than 10,000 toys and everything like that. But no, we're expecting about anywhere between 5,000 to 6,000 people out there. And when I tell you they will be blessed with the overflow, a lot of times people come and they get one or two toys. When you come to a Shabbat event, you got to have baskets. You got to have hands.
And some people are bringing their wagons.
Yes, you got to have wagons. Bring it because that's how much they bless you with in the overflow. I remember one year, which really touched my heart. She was able to give out heaters and ice makers and things of that nature for the adults. And I remember being at the stage, and a young boy came up, an immigrant, and he came up and he says, "Do you have any more heaters? We're cold." And then I said, "Well, who are you with?" And then his mother came over and said, "We really don't have any heat where we're at. We really want a heater." Well, they had given out the majority of the heaters. And I went over and I talked to Dr. Carroll. Dr. Carroll said, "Hold on, I have maybe one or two left over here in this corner." She brought out the heater, and it was a beautiful heater. It was on a tripod that it could heat up high and everything else that nature. But out of respect for the culture, I also realized that her husband was standing over in the corner. And so instead of giving her or the son the heater, I walked it over to him and asked him, was it okay to give it to him? And when I went back to the stage, she came over and she said, "Thank you so much for respecting my husband."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and those little things mean so much to our immigrant community, because many times people mistreat our immigrants that are here because they say, well, you're taken from somebody else. But no, they're here. They're a part of our country. And we need to, always be mindful of their culture and who they are. They are still yet humans. They're still yet God's children.
And I think you're so right. And I am just really pleased with the outpouring that I see from us. I know this past Saturday they had a big event at Porter Elementary School, and Combined Elements were there, Gyra Provider and others. And it was just amazing what they did. They had created a Santa's workshop, and they had people there, young people dressed as elves to help the kids, and they had just tons of toys where they could pick what they wanted, and the elves helped them select the gifts, and they had boxes of food, they had produce, they had a table with nothing but sandwiches, where you could just go and get sandwiches, like you go to a luncheon or something. And then they had one person had cookies, and they had a place with face painting for kids, and it was just an endless stream of things. It was designed to serve over 700 people, and I know by the time we got through there, at least 500 folks had come through.
Yes.
And so that's ongoing, and it reminded me of the week before I mentioned that the United Labor, the San Diego and Imperial labor councils had their combined event, and they gave away so many food distribution turkeys and toys in Mission Valley, I think about 100 and some. But then this past week they had phase 2 in Imperial and El Centro, where they had another 250 people. So people have been blessed with food. with produce, milk, eggs, all kinds of things, turkeys, the trimmings to go with it to make a meal in terms of a holiday. And yeah, the one big difference that we mentioned, Dr. Thompson, with Shabbat this year, requesting that people who want toys for the kids, they have to bring the kids,
Yes.
as opposed to people just going up there saying, "I got 5 kids, give me 5 toys."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think which is really important, Dr. Warren, is that we learn how to share. There are some people that are going to these events 3 and 4 times, and then they're winding up selling the toys or trying to benefit or profit from there. We can't control their heart. Only God can do that. But we're going to continue to provide opportunities for our community and showing them the love that, God shows. And, it's something about when you're a little kid to be able to have a toy under your Christmas tree and to be able to benefit for that. And it's also a time for family, to have a good meal, for maybe some families to get out the cold,
Yes.
but that's what we're all about. And I want to thank all the organizations that have done such an amazing job with that. I also want to say congratulations to you for receiving an award this Saturday with the Blue Heart Foundation, the Tracy Morrison, was it Legacy Award?
Yes, it was a Tracy Morrison Legacy Award, and it was an honor to receive that. It was named after Tracy, who's done such an outstanding job with the kids of Blue Heart, and the fruit of his efforts was on full display in terms of what people did and how they did it and how well it was. And so it was quite an event. I was quite honored to receive that award named after him. I have it in my office where I will continue and always proudly display it.
One of the things about my excitement about working with Blue Heart is the young men. Anytime you can get young men and young women in a positive environment and letting them reign and look good, sound good, and their behavior was outstanding. And so this is a shout out to the Blue Heart organization. Matthew Gordon, who has officially stepped down, will still remain a mentor, but he is going on to be the district director for Lachey Collins 79th Assembly District, and they have brought Tammy Blevins up as the executive director, and they have, did some restructuring, but Blue Heart will continue and to grow strong. So excited about that. Shout out to the San Diego Urban League for their gala this week.
Yes.
I thought that, it was enjoyable, but yet timely, in the sense that when you have an event in the middle of the week, which was a Thursday night, time is always the essence to do a full program, but do it in a timely manner. And they not only did that, but they made it very enjoyable.
Well, also, it's important to note that the Urban League is a nonprofit, and I thought it was interesting the way they did it. They used the occasion to hold their annual meeting,
Yes.
which is required by law. And so the annual meeting was held in the midst of a very enjoyable evening in terms of people that were there. You did a yeoman's job of keeping the timelines together. A matter of fact, I think you finished like 10 minutes early, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then people were, they didn't have to rush out because they had coffee stands there that people could still hang out and fellowship, and that kind of took some of the pressure off the valet parking out there waiting for folks to get to their cars, and so it was very enjoyable, and we appreciate being included in it.
And one of the things that we share all of this is because as we go into the new year, there's going to be many different celebrations for MLK. But kicking off Black History Month, we will be again celebrating with the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint with your gala. And so I'm encouraging everybody to stay tuned. The unique thing about this gala in the time of everything going up, Dr. Warren has said we will not go up, but we're going to make sure that our ticket prices remain the same and that they are still doable for the community to consistently come out and be a part of it. But here's the catch. Normally we set up for about 400 to 500. This year we're only setting up for 300 because we want to make sure that, again, we're still COVID responsible, but also that it could be comfortable and it's going to be as exclusive as you can ever imagine.
And what we're doing with it is two important things. First of all, Eventbrite is already up for people who want to purchase the tickets early. They're only $95 this year. We're not going to raise them. We're only planning 8 people to those large tables, not 10. We're not trying to cram people in, and we want to keep it healthy and safe for folks. And we'll be streaming because we'll be recording, but there'll be no substitute for being there. We're going to be at Liberty Station. It's going to be, people are still talking about last year, and folks are signing up as sponsors. And it's the sponsors that allow us to keep the ticket prices down, because we really want, in this period of transition, we really want to be supportive of the community in terms of what we're doing. And so there's uncertainty in the air in terms of the economy, but we know God is in charge, and so we're excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's the one thing as a good pitch to take us to national news. And but I want to start off with the state of California. They are starting to make safety measures to try to keep certain things happening with schools. That ICE can't just come into schools. They're trying to create all these laws. How do you think that's going to affect us in getting our federal funding?
Well, we got a couple of things that are going to happen here. First of all, we had the school shooting in Wisconsin, but what has surfaced this week, and we've been following it, is we've had 5 or 6 children killed in California. A toddler got a hold of a gun, and the mother's boyfriend, I guess, left it on a night table, and the kid got the gun and was playing with it, and accidentally killed the mother while she was asleep.
Wow.
And so that happened, and then another kid killed his brother playing with the guns, and the boyfriend in this first instance has been charged with child endangerment, because now there's a big push to hold the parents and the adults responsible. There's no reason that people should have firearms in a home that are loaded. If you have a gun in the house, kids are going to find it. And this is what's happening. And I know as my kids were growing up, if it came time to do a sleepover or something, the first thing I did was had a conversation with the parents of where they were going. Are there guns in your home? Are they secure? Are they locked away? Because my kids can't come and stay in an environment where that's not taking place. And so those are things that we really have to gear up. Now, on your second question, which was your first question about how we're going to handle this, the Board of Supervisors, so many people, we see California as a sanctuary city and San Diego as a sanctuary county, if you will. And so that means, from our standpoint, the Board of Supervisors does not believe that that people who are in a hospital or in jail or church, that the Sheriff's Department or law enforcement should be helping them collect these people for deportation. And so we know last week we had this scenario where there was a vote that took place, and the Sheriff Kelly Martinez took the position that the Board of Supervisors resolutions has no binding effect for her or for the Sheriff's Department, because she's not under the control of the Board of Supervisors. She's a separate entity. But the rub here is that while you're not under control of the board and you're elected independently, even as the DA is, the reality is that your money comes from the County of San Diego. And so the County of San Diego has some budgetary authority, and we don't know what kind of maneuvers Trump is going to pull. We know that we're very crucial to whatever is done dealing with the immigrant issue, just because of where we are on the border and because of people, they're coming in Campo, they're coming in at different places where the walls are not where they could be or should be. And so these are real serious issues.
Yeah, and one of the things about it is that a lot of people are in fear of what is going to happen, and I try to tell people consistently that many times people don't even pay attention to what's happening in the government, and they really don't know what's going to be their effect because they're really not paying attention, and many times they don't see it.
Well, I think you're right, and I know Trump is talking. You know, you would think he's already in office when you consider things like the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, went down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring and meet with him, and people are making decisions in Israel in terms of Gaza and the Syria reclamation. They're making decisions as if Trump was already there in office, and so we have a lot going on. But I thought it was significant when Trump made the statement. I believe it was yesterday in a press conference. He made the statement that he was going to stay in support of the polio vaccine.
Yeah.
He had kudos for Jonas Salk, who was one of those people inventing it, and he also talked about people that he had known in his life who had been affected by polio. And so all of those things are kind of contrary to RFK Jr., who is now softening his stance somewhat on vaccines. And it is my strong feeling that once Trump gets in office, that there are a number of things he's going to backpedal on, because I think he's going to become concerned about his legacy. And he doesn't want his legacy. No president wants his legacy to be tarnished with just disagreements and efforts to throw everything out.
Yeah, and one of the things about it is that if he wants his legacy to be strong, do something about gun control. I mean, not one president has been able to do anything really, truly about gun control, and yet and still we see the babies still being killed.
All the time.
We saw, just recently in Wisconsin, as we mentioned, a 15-year-old comes to school and shoots a teacher. And here's the sad thing: the teacher was a substitute teacher just for that day. And she lost her life subbing for another teacher and a student. And the thing about it is they said, well, they want to find out the background of if she was bullied, if she was that, if she was that. My thing is that she couldn't get her hands on a gun, she would not have been able to create that mass destruction.
And did they say, I couldn't follow it, but did they say it was anger, something had happened that angered her? Because that was the first incident where we've had a girl as a killer, and then she turned the gun and killed herself.
Yeah.
And we know that teen suicide is up in this country in a tremendous way. So these are things we're looking at, Dr. Thompson. At the same time, let us not forget TikTok, 170 million subscribers in the States, and they've done something very interesting. Instead of divesting it, they are supposed to do by the 18th of next month, January. They're going to the Supreme Court with the First Amendment plea.
Well, and then Donald Trump has said that he doesn't know if he wants them to end because he got so many people that supported him that were TikTokers.
Well, but also the president of TikTok also went down to Mar-a-Lago or is scheduled to go to meet with him. And it appears that whoever has money, Trump has time for.
Exactly.
And so it's a question of, there are a lot of businesses, but I think it's brazen that China's attitude is, we're not going to divest and break it up. We're going to use your own government and constitution and laws to fight you, to keep it where it is. And it is a national security threat in terms of having TikTok owned by the Chinese, when we know the relationship of the Chinese government to businesses there.
Well, and I think more than anything else is that, let's just go all the way in. TikTok does a lot of things that cause people to do crazy things for the views, and then they get hurt. Why don't we just make TikTok responsible if somebody does one of their crazy tricks and gets paralyzed or gets hurt, that they are responsible for the bill? I guarantee they're divested then.
We're not going to do that by law, since we've already set this thing up to kick them out. But I think there are going to be a number of lawsuits that are going to come, that people are going to look at whether or not folks found stuff on TikTok to encourage them to do the things that they're doing. So, this internet is it's an open pit at this point. I mean, we got kids on there. They talk about parental safeguards. You don't know who's a parent. If you got a safeguard, the kid's gonna find a way to get around it, and that's gonna be very real. So,
And the one thing that the World Wide Web has created is for you to get information that you would not normally be able to get very easily. You could put in right now how to build a bomb, and the World Wide Web will teach you how to build a bomb, how to do an incendiary device.
It will do that.
Yeah.
There's no question. The information is there, and that was the intent, to put all knowledge on Google, and there was always some concern about that from entities like the American Library Association, because once we let everything go to Google or any other entity, then we get to be controlled when people filter stuff and erase and change and rewrite. And
Yeah.
we see a lot of that already taking place.
I think that if you look up anything that deals with bomb, incendiary device, or whatever, you automatically be put on the FBI watch list. and I guarantee folks will be like, okay, I'm not gonna say bomb. I'm not gonna,
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
black people back in the day, we'd be in trouble like, ooh, that's the bomb. Uh-oh, they on the FBI plate.
Yeah, because the listening stations that the NSA has,
Yeah.
they look for keywords. And when you say something like, oh man, that's the bomb,
Yeah.
that triggers a whole scenario
Yeah.
of people listening and pulling up stuff and looking at who you are and the whole bit. All we have to do is look at what happened with what's his name, Mancioni in New York, who killed the United Healthcare CEO. And we have found some interesting things from that as we shift gears, that his grandmother, who was wealthy, left over $30 million to her children and grandchildren with a specific stipulation that if anybody was indicted or convicted of a felony, they would forfeit their interest. Now that's kind of a weird piece to put out, okay? And yet they say that this guy has had over 150 contributions to his prison account since he's been arrested.
Yeah.
Okay, and people are just pouring money in. Now, we also understand that.
But I would say, Dr. Warren, that's a very, very smart move, because if they have to forfeit it, that basically means that no one can come after them because they don't have it no more.
No.
And so she protected the body by saying, if anybody gets here, you don't have nothing.
No, it was a smart move on her part to do that. Okay, and so we also had the celebration this week, which is kind of weird, that J.D. Vance invited the killer of the young man on the subway to go to a ball game with him,
Yeah.
and making him a celebrity for a chokehold murder of somebody that wasn't even bothering him. I think Daniel Perry is the guy's name, and a jury of his peers, they acquitted him. So, and he can't be tried again for it. Double jeopardy kicks in, and so he's free to take all of these bows, and we are the ones sitting back, kind of quietly complaining, but not really complaining. And I think we need to check ourselves on that.
Dr. Warren, I'm putting up, as we begin to look at the year in review, some of the headlines that we had when we started off the year in January 6th. These are the things we're just coming off of Kwanzaa, but we also said people who California sterilized can now apply for reparation payments.
And there were a lot of people sterilized in California. The sterilization, a lot of it was handled under the Equal Opportunity Act, and while we had outreach and we had community organizations, I know in Maryland in particular, because they held a hearing in Congress about this, they were bringing in young ladies who were predominantly black, and they were bringing them in for health care exams, and while they were there, they were sterilizing them, and they had no idea that they were being sterilized.
Yes.
Okay, and so we consider all of these are acts of genocide against the people, if you will.
Then your second issue of the year was the big MLK issue. Let's talk about what's planned for this year.
Well, this year we're going to be repeating a great deal of the information that we put out. You know, there's no new information in terms of Dr. King, but what we have found is as we move these 50 some years away from, you know, his assassination and his lifestyle, we now find that people are just getting news bites, if you will, about Dr. King. You know, they flood the TV with excerpts from "I Have a Dream," and the speech was about more than just having a dream. The speech was about the America giving us a check that bounced insufficient funds in terms of doing all the things that needed to be done. So this stuff is important, and we have a timeline and a pictorial history, and excerpts from his speeches, like the letter from a Birmingham jail, his award at Norway, where he accepted the Peace Prize, which I think is one of the greatest speeches ever given. And what we are doing this year, as we did last year, at the Jackie Robinson Martin Luther King breakfast, we will be putting 12 to 1,400 copies of this paper on the seats of all of the attendees. We were doing the same thing for the celebration that will be on the Midway,
Yes.
where they will have a couple hundred people come there, and then we will be sharing at the community park there, where we're going to have a big setup at the George Stephen Senior Resource Center.
Yes.
I'm going to be speaking to people there, and so we have a lot of sharing to help people look at what Dr. King said. Hopefully they'll read it. For instance, here's one of my favorite examples. In May of 1957, Dr. King gave a speech which was entitled, "Give Me the Vote. And if you give me the vote, then I will elect the people that need to be elected to legislatures and judges and all the different people. I will put people in office that will address the concerns that we have and the needs that we have." And so those things are important in terms of what we're looking at.
And you look at when we went into Black History last year, the Hamlet coffee shop was still around, and it's now gone. But thank God we have the Mental Bar that is thriving and really doing some great works in the community. Let's talk about going into this new year. I almost want to call this the Year of the Woman, because we're so fortunate to have a Secretary of State, a first ever African American, and Dr. Shirley Weber. We have a first senator from San Diego, Akilah Weber.
First black senator.
Black senator,
Right.
Ms. Akilah Weber. Then we have Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins in the 79th. We have Monica Montgomery in the
Board of Supervisors.
and then we have Henry Foster in the city of San Diego. But so many prominent positions. We have Ebony over there at the county.
Ebony Shelton as his chief administrative officer for the county.
You have Judy Croker over at the
Well,
tourism.
Judy is now the president of the Tourism and Convention Bureau in the city of New York.
Oh, so she's gone.
She's gone,
Wow.
and she's already taken on her new position.
Okay.
And I saw a piece online with her there, and that's good for her because her family, I think, is out of Philadelphia, so she was able to move back and be closer to home.
Can I say something?
Sure.
People sometimes don't look at how much San Diego is a launching pad for so many great opportunities. People come here to work in the school systems, to work in this environment because it is an urban area, and then it launches them to that next level. And so just to see her go from San Diego to New York is a big move.
It is a big move. And when you mention that, you know, when we first built the convention center, I remember before it opened, they hired staff, and one of the people they hired was Carol Wallace, who came from Colorado here, and one of my daughters worked for while they were putting it together to launch the center. And so we have people who have come into positions of prominence, people of color, which is very significant. My concern, though, is that so many of the ones that we have today have no idea of the shoulders that they stand on or the people who made it all possible for them. I mean, you look at former Supervisor Councilman Leon Williams, who is would be 102 this year if he's able to stay with us, and how Leon was our first Black City Council member, and how the blacks and the Latinos worked together in those early days, so that they sent a Pete Chacon to the assembly when they sent Leon to the city council, and he went on to the board of supervisors. It doesn't mean a lot to us now, but along the freeway, Leon Williams is the person that was responsible for call boxes going in on the roadside at those intervals long before the cell phone became a pocket item that we had. And we had a lot of things happen to people, like the young lady that was killed up off of 15 near Poway by the police officer, a highway patrolman. And so we have just tremendous, tremendous history. And even as we go toward the Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast of Jackie Robinson, so many of us remember when that whole event was started in the gym of the old Jackie Robinson building, and people like Rufus DeWitt and Dr. Matthews, these people came to San Diego. DeWitt came to be a part of the YMCA, and so and now his daughter sits there with us, and so that's important. And we also, you got some other things this year. We dealt with hate and San Diego County cracking down on hate and harassment. And the Voice and Viewpoint played a major role under a grant from California Library people to bring all of our ethnic communities together to deal with this issue. We held seminars, webinars, town hall meetings, luncheon meetings, produced documents and information. And so it was a very busy time for us. And the irony of it is that it was the Asian community that was responsible for all of this taking place. But to date, the African American community in California still has the largest incidence of hate crimes of any ethnic group in the state.
And some people would say, is that because they will report them and other people don't report them? It's still hard for people to believe. But the sad thing about it is racism is very much still alive. And most of the time when you talk about racism, they're going to first start off with the African American.
That's true.
So that's the reason why we still see it still on the rise. Let's just talk about, we've been talking about reparations all year long. Where are we at with the reparations?
Well,
I ain't got my 40 acres and a mule yet.
And you won't get it.
I'm not going to get it.
And you're not going to get it.
Can I get 40 acres?
You won't get the 40 acres either at this point. And I don't know if they have enough mules left to pass.
I can use a mule every now and then.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen. The mule is gone. And I do want to say that while we covered all of the discussions and meetings on reparation, even when the legislative people came here and they talked about the state of Black California, that was not a state of Black California meeting. That was a reparations meeting that they held. And so, we have put a lot into it, Dr. Thompson. You, with the efforts of Mandate and GOD Radio and our partnership to cover these meetings and to get information out to people. And I don't think the people realize the reach that we have at this point. I think we have to remind them. You can remind them of the number of countries that are plugged into GOD Radio.
Yeah, 71 as of today.
You've got 71, okay? And my social analytics person who tracks every week, every day, who's watching what in terms of our social media platforms and our website as well, tells me that there are people in 90 countries that are following Voice and Viewpoint each week online. And it might be one or two. We notice in a couple of countries, numbers are up. During October, numbers were really up as people were looking at the data we had on the election and propositions and how all that came out. And so we have a a tremendous following. There are about 10 countries that get real primary treatment. You know, the UK, Canada, if you will, Mexico, the U.S. But then we also track cities here, you know, like San Diego, L.A., Fresno, San Francisco, cities in the state of California, and then people across the country in California because our staff is branched out. And so this is a year of transitioning for us. And the Voice and Viewpoint is getting ready to make a real major impression in terms of the digital world while we still continue to print. And so we're excited about that. And a lot of it is the leadership that we have under our managing editor and the staff that's been assembled. And they're doing a phenomenal job. And we got some real surprises up our sleeves in terms of we believe that it doesn't matter that Trump is there. What matters is what we do with it. And so last week, for instance, we did an editorial talking about the need for a counter 2025 Project 2025 plan so that we plan to go through that project and develop strategies to counter what's being done. And we had a tremendous number of hits on that on all of our platforms. So we're going to keep producing like you're going to keep producing. And we need to hear from you, our neighbors and citizens. We need to hear from you because we say a people without a voice can't be heard.
Now, one of the things, before I go to this one, I wanted to show you this new book that has come out, and it's called Deceive, The Poison Fruit of Evangelicalism, and by Dr. Mark A. Williams. And when I say this one is a good read, it exposes how the passion of devoted Christians are exploited to garner unwavering loyalty to evangelicalism cause, drawing parallels between modern evangelical efforts and the ancient Pharisees' agenda. Williams reveals how Christians are urged to pursue political power under the guise of divine duty. Threatened by perceived moral decay, many evangelicals have engaged in a fierce battle to preserve Christian principles, often at the cost of abandoning Jesus' true message and method. William challenges common sense Christian position on controversial social topics, offering a perspective that many may closely align with Jesus' teaching. He tackles complex issues such as abortion, LGBTQ plus rights as religious pursuits with scriptural insight and careful consideration. Now, I did an interview with this gentleman, and it was very, very interesting because he was saying that when they do these polls and they say, well, 85% of evangelicals believe this way. He said when they look at the polls, the two things that they when they do it is that they only survey evangelicalisms that are white. There's no black survey when they come up with those numbers.
That's always been the case.
Yeah. And so he was just talking about how they're using evangelical this as almost a political party versus as a religious stance. And he breaks it down scripture-wise to say that don't be deceived. You can't say that this man is a man of God knowing that he doesn't follow anything, but he's the only vote. But then you're going to say the Democrats are that. And he's on both sides of the fence. He talks about the Democrats, the Republicans, but and how it's being manipulated and deceiving people.
Well, you know, this my position will probably be surprising in terms of what I'm about to say, because as a teacher of the scriptures, there are a lot of things I shy away from trying to share with congregation and people who are, for instance, the Apocrypha. I let people know what it is, but I don't get into it. The lost books, the omitted books, the Bible conferences, how things were done. I think in this day and age, we need to focus on the word, the red letter word of Christ in the Bible, more so than the sidebar conversations and positions that people are coming up with. Mm-hmm. Because if we get people to follow the red letter as it's spelled out in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and especially John. As we have people look at those things and look at what Christ said, like the Olivet Discourse and understanding, we see a roadmap. And I think that one of the things that was so significant about Dr. King was his student posture with the Bible. He understood the Word. He read the Word. He read Micah and Amos and the minor prophets and major prophets, and his speeches were laced with Scripture in terms of these things. And so I think we need to do that, because when we start giving people these alternative elements of discussion and they're not grounded in terms of the Word, then we set them up to be deceived and distracted. Mm-hmm. And when folks come to us, Jehovah's Witnesses or the different people who knock at our doors, they've already been grounded in terms of their positions. And so many times we're not in a position to hold that. Mm-hmm. And so, for instance, we need to understand when we have the Church of God in Christ, the Church of God in Christ and the Assemblies of God both come out of the Azusa Street movement going back to 1906. And so we know that the Assemblies of God represent the white element that came out of that, and the Church of God in Christ represented the black element. Mm-hmm. Both considered evangelical, if you will. But the word evangelical has been so misrepresented and so misleading. I mean, because all of us as Christians are evangelists. That's the message of Matthew 28, mm-hmm. as Jesus gives the Great Commission, go forth into all the world, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so we see in Mark the whole discussion about what will happen if we get in the Word and let the Word get in us. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't mean to be so long-winded with this, but I'm always very concerned. We got all kinds of books. I've got a book on what the church doesn't want you to know about the Word. We need to get the Word.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love so much about the book, is that it is full of Word. It's full of Scripture, and it's not condemning one way or another. It's saying don't be deceived and being sidebarred with people telling you that this is the way to go. This is the way to go. What does the Word say? And that's what he comes back to. And even with the Kojic Church, actuality, the Assemblies of God came out of the Kojic Church because they didn't want to be ordained by black men. And so they decided that they needed their own. So even their whole sense of being was based in racism.
And that's a very ironic piece there, Dr. Thompson, because they didn't want to be ordained by black men, but they were created as a result of William Seymour, who was a black man, blind in one eye, who came out of Texas to California. Mm-hmm. And when he was in Texas and the great revival and outpouring of the Spirit was taking place, the white people wouldn't let him in the church.
Exactly.
And he had to stand outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but yet he took being outside and brought that movement here, and it took off. Mm-hmm. And what really made it take off was that there was a reporter with the LA Times that was following up on all of these people going to Azusa Street to see what was going on over there, because people were coming from everywhere. And on one occasion, a week before the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco, he prophesied that the quake was going to take place. Mm-hmm. And there was a reporter in the service who went back and wrote about it and went to Panicville a week later when the earthquake hit, just on schedule according to the prophecy.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, again, I think that in this time, with this season of this new administration that's going to come in, it is going to be requiring that we educate ourselves both mentally, spiritually, and physically to be able to not just weather the storm, but to thrive. Because, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous. The Bible will tell you literally how to navigate this time in this season. So as kingdom citizens, we shouldn't be worried, because we got the book that will navigate us through this time and any other time that we go through, be it Democrat, Republicans, be it any of those people.
Well, I believe that Donald Trump is our Nebuchadnezzar, okay? Mm-hmm. And I believe that America has a great deal to pay for in terms of our lifestyle, turning away from God, the LGBTQ, abortions, all these things that people want to get uptight about when you mention them. There's no question, and from a scriptural standpoint, in Jeremiah, he says, "I knew you in the womb," and he says in Jeremiah, "I know what plans I have towards you, toward an expected end." And so that we got this whole element moving against abortion, and then we have this other element who's talking about a person's right with their body. The two things are not in conflict. At no point does the scripture tell us, at no point that God demands that we become saved and we do what he says. In Deuteronomy 28, he says, "Choose ye this day."
Whom you will
And
serve.
he lets you which way you gonna go. He lets you know if you go right, this is gonna happen. If you go left, that's gonna happen. And so that's the challenge today for us. We let people choose. We don't start hating on people because their lifestyle variations. We pray for them. And I believe that in this administration, that Donald Trump is going to become a victim of what history has shown us. History has raised a perennial question all through a number of cases. Does the man make the office, or does the office make the man? Okay? And the first time around, the man tried to make the office because Trump was just crazy. I believe in this term, after he gets through these first 6 months of 100 days and trying to placate all these people, that he's going to be concerned about his legacy. And I believe that he's going to change up on some things. I know we got a big issue coming on this first day. Is he going to commute the sentence of all those people? We got Biden right now trying to decide, and it shouldn't even be a decision for Biden. He should be commuting people, and we got people in jail that need pardons and clemency.
Yeah.
Okay, because Trump has done his people, and I don't blame Biden for pardoning his son. He should, but let's pardon these other people, because we already know statistically that there are more black folks in jail than anybody else. And a lot of that is because of how they restructured the guidelines between crack, if you will, and heroin, so that if you will,
cocaine.
yeah, the cocaine,
Yeah.
you know.
So, Dr. Warren, I know that you probably have already received this, but one of the things that we had the major floods of last year,
Yes.
and people are very concerned about what we're prepared for this year. So, just recently, the city has come out, or soon to come out, with a floodplain fast facts. Have you seen this one yet?
I haven't seen that yet, and I'm glad to see it. But each week they meet at Jackie Robinson, the committee, and I'm very concerned that at this meeting on Monday of this week, there were still families there who said there were heaters being distributed, and that they were cold and hadn't received heaters. They had been processed and cleared by FEMA. They had been through all of these things, and now the people that were brought in here, that vote San Diego group that's handling everything, are telling people they got to have bank statements and a whole bunch of stuff, and meanwhile people are cold and they're trying to survive. And I think that this is ridiculous that we have folks coming in here who don't know San Diego, imposing more bureaucracy when we ought to be trying to continue the acceleration of helping the people, because there are folks who are still not in their homes, who are still suffering out there. And I applaud and salute the ongoing effort of the committee that stayed the course even this year beyond the county and the city and all the other people.
Yeah, and that's just a sad thing. A year later, people are still not made whole. A
No.
year later, people still can't live in their homes. And, this is happening in America's finest city, as they would say. Just like, Katrina, they said, oh, that was a tragedy. But we've had major tragedy here, and yet and still, people are still suffering. And so we have to continue to keep the efforts moving forward. We're going to continue to cover those stories and also continue to put out the information. The rainy season is coming up. So it is important that we begin to prepare for it. So if you live by a channel and you see that it's overgrown, make it an issue. Push it out there so that you have evidence that you try to do everything to fix it. And then that will help in the long run.
Well, it looks like the rains that we had near the end of during this year when we had those floods come through, those heavy rains come through. We saw the city had stationed workers at those key points of the drainage system. They had gone in and moved derbish and trees and all kinds of stuff. They also had sandbags available for people, and we need to continue to do all of that, okay? Because until this happened, we just thought that these drain channels were just there for cosmetic decoration,
Yeah.
as opposed to the real world. And when we think about where folks are going to be on the parking lot on Christmas Eve over there at Jacobs, we got to remember that last year in that flood, that whole parking lot was underwater.
Not only was it underwater, but the cars were floating.
The cars were floating, and the little tunnel that you go under,
Yeah.
I remember one car was stuck up near the top of the tunnel,
Yeah.
caught up in the stuff.
Yeah.
And so the waters inside the building had flooded. The first floor was messed up, and so we've had some real serious issues out here. And I'm hoping that we can just. I'm having a problem with some of the leadership that we have on the city council. I want to mention another issue that's real important, real fast here. We have this issue called Footnote 7 that's involving the communities of Emerald Hill and the Choyas View people. And we discovered that the state, while everywhere else in San Diego, they have a 20,000 square foot limit in terms of building. For some reason, in the Encanto community, an amendment was made called Footnote 7 that allowed massive building within a 5,000 square foot scenario, which is something that leads to congestion and the ghettoizing of a community. And the mayor signed off on it, the city council, both Monica and Henry signed off on this. And now we need them to come forward and take an action to reverse what took place because the developer is there. The mayor's office has told us at the press that they can't do an executive order. I believe that they should be able to send a recommendation to the council, and the city council should vote to not only reverse Footnote 7, but it should also vote to cancel the construction that's going to take place. That's that land where that radio tower is, and they want to put all kinds of housing in. The developers, any place that's space in San Diego, they want to stick stuff on it.
Yeah, and the problem is simply this: is that they want to build because they say we need more housing, but they're not putting in the infrastructure to be able to handle that. The roadways they made smaller, but they're putting more traffic in it, so they're really creating a traffic jam area all throughout the community. And thus, when you have that, you have people, you have anger, you have more violence, and yet still they're not putting the infrastructure of grocery stores, they're not putting in infrastructures of cleaners and the things that will make a community thrive.
And they're not going to do it, Dr. Thompson. They're not going to do it because, it pains me to say this. All efforts to put grocery stores in our communities across the country have been economic failures. The people who put the stores in, and we saw what happened with Whole Foods up in San Francisco. I saw this happen in D.C. when they try to put stores in our community. When you put those stores there, the thefts that take place in the stores, number one, not only the thefts that take place, but the people that you try to hire from the community, they are issues as well. And I'm not doing a stereotype thing, but I'm just showing you that people have regrouped. After we had the riots in L.A., you saw something take place. You saw stores like Thrifty remove the glass and put up the walls and just have glass at a certain point. The grocery stores, there's only a 3% profit margin, 2% in grocery in terms of food. We just had 2 judges turn down the merger between Kroger and Vons and Kroger and Albertson, which is dead now in the water. And so they're not going to build stores for these places that they're putting up because these communities are going to be predominantly people of color and they're going to be overcrowded. That hilltop terrace on Euclid that was just put up, the apartments on the front, Now that place is a mess. They have people sleeping in the stairwells. They have drug needles in the building. They have people with pets urinating in the hallway and on the elevator. There's no property management present. There's no security. There's nothing being done. And I've got major investigation going right now in terms of all this. Yet behind them, they put these condos, and then they put a bridge to let people from the condos come over and use what the apartments have, but the people from the apartments are supposed to be able to go over and use it. So all of this kind of regentification, if you will, we're not getting the kind of studies that we should, and it's because a decision has been made that we don't pay attention to these meetings, we don't fight back, and we don't vote, therefore we're fair game.
So I want to ask the last but not least, and this is a sidebar. Why do we have a squash court in the heart of the community, and what was the definition or the meaning behind why?
I don't know, Dr. Thompson. I can't tell you why, but if we don't play squash, it wasn't put there for us.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just like when they built the Kroc Center up there, and they moved out the Ralphs and the Home Depot, and Joan Kroc bought all that land, tore everything down. One of the things she put there was an ice skating rink.
Yeah.
Okay, which is kind of interesting to me. Now, of course, we have an ethnically diverse community, but I remember in D.C. in my district when they came 40 years ago and built an ice skating rink right in the park, and where nobody ice skated, and it was like, wow, what's that all about?
Now, do they still have the ice skating rink?
Yeah,
Really?
it's still there.
Do they?
It's year round. It's open.
Really?
Yeah, right there at Kroc Center on the right hand side of the pool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never knew that. Never knew that.
Yeah, it's ice skating. It's there. You can go and learn to skate. They have all kind of lessons and stuff for you.
Okay. Well,
so obviously, those things we don't know, maybe they give us a chance to learn, but there are other people in the community that don't look like us that do know these things, and they take advantage of them.
Yes. My ankles were never strong enough for ice skates.
I'm always nervous about it because that's the way to get a break, and I'm like you. That's one thing I'll not know the joys of.
Yeah. I tell people, and you were in the military. I don't know if you ever jumped out of a plane or anything.
No, and I'm gonna tell you, when I came out of OCS at Fort Benning, and they were ushering us into parachute school as a young lieutenant, I said I'm not going. And they started calling me a sissy because I didn't want to jump out of planes. And I said, give me some pink slippers and a purse and a hat and whatever dress you want me to wear. And that's what I wear because I ain't jumping out of no plane. I never did. Because I was there, I remember in basic in Fort Jackson when they were doing the demonstrations at graduation. And this guy did what they call a Roman candle. Jumped out of the plane, the chute didn't open. And it crushed him right in front of us.
Yeah.
That was enough for me to say, nope, not doing it.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, as a black man in America, that's still enough for me. I don't need anything else thrilling. So I don't do roller coasters. I don't do parachutes because this being in America is, as a black man, is still enough for me.
Well, historically, I want you to just quickly tell you why so many blacks did go into parachute, because we had a lot of people like from Panama and Puerto Rico, and they were privates, and if they signed up to jump, they got extra pay for each jump they did. So since they couldn't get promotions too fast, they did the jumping to get the extra money.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Warren, believe it or not, we are end of our last show of the year.
Yes.
It's been truly a pleasure doing life with you. I want to leave off with the final word with you.
Well, I just want people to know that we have all been blessed this year. I don't want you to get depressed if you don't have what you want. I don't want you to get depressed watching Hallmark and the turkey and all the bright lights and people gather around and then you get all worked up over it. Be thankful for who you are, where you are, what you have, and the extent that God has blessed you to be here again. And I'm thankful this year with Dr. Thompson and all of you who have come on board to listen and support us. I thank God for you. I wish you the best. And so we're going to say Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad. Always remember John 3:16, that God so loved the world that he gave. And that's why we have the spirit of giving.
Y'all be blessed. Have a great night.